of all, let me preface this episode by saying that, like, I do not condone violence. You know what I'm saying? However, I do feel like there are certain instances where I get it, right? Let me land.
Welcome to Discovering Delight, a podcast by Sia Shabani.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Discovering Delight. This is the podcast where I speak about all the things that bring me joy. If this is your first time joining, thank you so much for being here. Really hope you enjoy and that you stick around for many more episodes and you maybe listen to previous episodes to see how far we've come. One thing that's been bringing me a lot of joy lately is getting back into reading. I feel like I fell off, right, when it came to my reading. And I think this was inspired by the fact that I was just reading a lot of classical novels. And perhaps this wasn't the season of my life where I should have been doing a deep dive into Dostoevsky, doing a deep dive into Tolstoy. Like, maybe I needed to just reel it back in. Yeah, so I just haven't been reading. For the first time in my life, I have so many books that I've picked up and I just haven't finished. And I was just like, you know what? It's okay to not finish this book. I'm the type of person who wants to finish what I start. So that was pretty hard for me to do. So I kind of like soldiered on. But because the books weren't inspiring me to read them, then I just didn't read. Because I still told myself that I need to finish this book before I pick up anything else, or these books before I pick up anything else. But you know what? I'm learning that it is okay to just take a pause from that piece of literature and focus on something else if you're just not feeling moved by it in that season of your life, right? So recently I picked up this book by Angela Makholwa, which is titled Black Widow Society. And I started reading it a couple of days ago and I'm in love, guys. So basically, Black Widow Society is a story about a Black women-led vigilante group, right? They assist other Black women get out of abusive marriages by assassinating their husbands, right? Already I'm like, oh, okay. Love the storyline, love a Black female vigilante group who has somewhat of like a moral mission, right? So you're in abusive situations you don't know how to get out of. Let's kill your husband for you. And I'm with that. Again, let me land. You know how like in the 1600s, 1800s, you know, in the older days, there typically was that woman witch in the society who was like a serial killer who could give you potions to go and kill your unruly husband. If your husband was just treating you poorly, whatever, you would go to this woman who had a potion and you would put a few drops of that in his tea and next thing he's gone. Bring that back. And honestly, I'm not saying I condone murder and violence in any way, but I do think that like this kind of storyline is making me think about some of the ideas that I have around our current justice system as it pertains to the violence and abuse of women and children, the femicide that we're currently living through, right? And it makes me think about just crime and punishment, right? How we are currently as a society looking at punishment for people who are harming other members of our society, right? Particularly women and children, because I do feel like the punishment isn't harsh enough, which is why men feel like they can go around murdering, raping, you know, being violent towards other people. It's because we're not punishing them hard enough. Like the jail sentences are not even there because at the end of the day, like someone will murder you and then they'll be out on bail of 5,000. I'm speaking for my country, Eswatini. Like these are stories that are continuously happening and therefore that doesn't inspire. I'm saying inspire a lot, right? But that doesn't inspire people to act in a way that benefits the other people in the community. They are comfortable perpetrating violence. They're comfortable doing things that harm others just because we don't have harsher punishment. So what does a just society look like to me? It looks like vigilante groups. It looks like us taking power back into their own hands because we've been failed by the justice system so many times. But yeah, it honestly makes me think about the ways in which we're navigating crime and punishment. We know prisons are not like rehabilitation centers, right? I think let's meet at the square, like Fridays, and if you do something to harm the next person, you're stoned, maybe. And if it so happens that I do something that harms the next person, I would be comfortable facing the consequences, because I do think, like, I'm not a believer on right and wrong to a certain extent. I am a believer in actions, consequences, right? And consequences can be something that is appeasing to you or something that is not so appeasing, right? I just think that if you murder someone, you must be comfortable with the consequence of getting killed as well, right? Like, the same pain that you inflict on others should be the same pain that you're comfortable receiving. Actually, I think that's my idea of justice. Honestly, let's theorize. You know that saying, do unto others as you would expect them to do unto you? Firmly believe that. So if in any point, if I ruled the world, anything that you did to the next person would come back to you tenfold. What does this mean? If you are somebody who's out here harming other people, we're returning that tenfold. That's what justice is in my society, right? If you're somebody who's doing good and who's being kind and who's being a valuable member of society, your actions will be rewarded tenfold. Tell me that doesn't sound like a good place to live in. So if you're out here raping people, you will face the same consequences. You know what I'm saying? If you're out here killing, murdering people, you will face the same consequences. So there is kind of like that thing where before people act, they think that, will I be comfortable if this thing were to be done to me? Wouldn't that be a great place to live in? No, I think it would be so great, and it would help us check ourselves before we go outside harming other people, even in the smallest things, right? So it's like, what act of kindness did you do today? That will be rewarded. Everyone would have a better time on earth. Obviously, if you're a good person, because if you're a horrible person, then sorry, baby, but you're going to face the same consequences. Whatever pain you inflict on other people, you will face those consequences. So you will learn to move with caution. And honestly, I'm also the type of person I'm comfortable facing the consequences of my actions. You know what I'm saying? If I drink, I know I'll be hungover, so I have to sit that hangover through because it is the consequences of my actions, right? If I harm someone in any way within like my community, a friend or whatever, and they don't want to be friends with me anymore, I'm comfortable taking that. Like, that's fair. Protect yourself. That's very valid, right? So I will sit in my silent corner and face the consequences of my actions. I'm not going to run from them. If I didn't do the work that was meant to be submitted today and I'm at school and I get a 0, sit in those consequences because you knew not doing the work was going to give you this consequence, right? And I think that like what happens then with the justice system that we currently have, where there aren't any clear consequences or punishments for the crimes that people are doing, that is left up to a judge, that is left up to like whether your lawyer had enough evidence or whatnot. No, I want us to take it back and say, if you do this, it is clear what your punishment will be based on your actions. I think that's the only way we can start to have an empathetic society. That's the only way we will like see a diminishing of criminal behaviors, especially as it pertains to like the femicide and the abuse towards women and children and all of these other things. So I really, really am enjoying the storyline in this book, just because it reminds me what the role of community is in protection of women in abusive situations, right? And to what ends will you go for the people that you care about and you love? And if this means ridding society of like the problematic people who are causing harm to other people, then so be it, because those are not people that we want to be around. So honestly speaking, I'm vibing with it. And I think that it is bringing me joy just because it's making me think more deeply about what justice looks like. And also, it's even things like when you speak about mob justice, I think to a certain extent, I love that idea. I really do. I love the idea of mob justice because it communicates that in this community, right, we do not tolerate this and this and this. And should you do this and this and this, every community member will come outside and they will square up because you did something that does not align to the values of this community. Well, then we maybe get into a debate of like, what are those values and who gets to decide those values, and what if some of those values are actually infringing on the rights of minority groups. That's a longer discussion. But at its core, theoretically, I love the idea of mob justice, and this is giving definitely that, the idea of vigilante groups who are seeking justice for the people who cannot seek it for themselves, or who society thinks that like they are not deserving of justice. Because so often I think that's what is communicated, especially to women who are abused, that you are not deserving of justice. Because when men who harm us get to walk around freely in society after doing the most despicable harm towards someone, that communicates to me that that person's personhood is not valued in society, that their justice does not matter in society, because the person who violated them can still walk around freely and get to live their lives as if they didn't come around and inflict pain on other people, right? When your life is drastically changed by this violation of your personhood, right? But that person still goes around and is accepted by society, whereas the person typically who is abused tends to be shamed, right? It's either we even shame them for, why didn't you speak up sooner? We shame them, oh, you wanted that, you married that man who is powerful and has money, what did you think was going to happen? And never do we hold men accountable for their actions. Although this is a fictional story, right? I think it is just like inspiring questions around what does it mean for women to exist in a society that doesn't value their personhood, that doesn't value giving them justice. And what then do we do knowing that information, right? How then do we protect ourselves knowing that information as women? And it speaks to like community of women coming together to take matters into their own hands, because at the end of the day, no one's coming to save us. And I think that is just inspiring a lot more conversations in my head, and I guess with the people around me, around what is justice, and also what are we willing to do in pursuit of that justice? You know what I'm saying? Because like obviously somebody else might read the very same book and draw different conclusions to what I'm drawing, and think that no, you can't match an eye for an eye. It's not the way to go about doing things. But what happens when the justice system has failed you? So I'm really enjoying reading, and I hope you guys enjoyed this YF session. I hope it didn't scare you too much. I think this is the episode where I shared some of my intrusive thoughts out loud. And I'm nervous because maybe like some of you guys might look at me sideways, because actually, let's match it. Let's match energy. I'm all about matching energy this year. And I think even in these situations, let's match energy. If you harm me, expect me to retaliate. I am so sorry. Like, I am so sorry. Like, there's actually no way I'm letting that slide. time for letting things slide is over. And I just like, yeah, I'm enjoying the book. I'm like 80 pages in. I started this last night, so I'm enjoying it, and it's just really nice to get out of my reading funk. I hope you guys enjoyed this yep session. I will be back with another one. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, I have been Sia.